All right, good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Whatever time that you're watching this video, I am Richard Taylor, and I'm coming to you with another video. Hope everybody had a Merry Christmas. As you see, I'm in a different environment, but I had to make this video. It's probably been about a week since I made a video, so it's this topic that has been going on for about a week or two before Christmas. And I decided to chime in with, some of my own experience and also commentary. And the subject, as the caption states, is TD Jakes and the rumored allegations of him being involved in some very, shall I say, ungodly behavior. Unless you have been under a rock within the past week and a half, you will have known that some allegations have surfaced via some celebrity outlets detailing, some quote unquote videos or some emails and some flash drives of Bishop T.D. Jakes purportedly being caught in some uncompromising positions at celebrity parties, mainly Puff Daddy, as well as him being rumored to have had same-sex relationships with numerous male prostitutes willingly and unwillingly. Now, first of all, of course, I have to give the disclaimer. I have no proof or no knowledge of any of this being true. So, as we said, and as actually he said on this broadcast, I think it was yesterday or the day before yesterday. He's not going to address a lie. So, by all intents and purposes, that is his way of denying these allegations. So, I want to start off by saying that. However, I have to also, go off of past experiences with very prominent pastors, and not even pastors, but very prominent people in the entertainment industry. And believe it or not, a lot of these pastors are in the entertainment industry. They associate with various members of the entertainment industry, so they kind of run in those same circles. Now, a lot of people have also criticized him for being, being around or being associated with these celebrities, and as they do a lot of people. But and that's kind of a two-way street, because you are supposed to be a light to the world, and actually Jesus hung around with the sinners and drug dealers and the drinkers and the prostitutes too. So if you are in that capacity of being a light into them, then your hanging around them is well warranted. However, if you are being influenced by them and participating in some of the debauchery, as it is alleged that Reverend Jakes has been doing, then you are taking that Jesus hung around the sinners excuse out of context. Now, I always tell people, regardless of who the minister is, I tell them all day, as far as like faith and sinning and Christians, I say, look, no matter who they is, and I often use him as an example. I said, no matter who they is, your favorite preacher somewhere is battling something. Nobody's perfect. So when something like this happens, I don't condemn the individual, but I also don't put it past the individual as well, because I know, once again, everybody is human. But there is something about this, this same sex or this homosexual action that's in the church that oftentimes goes overlooked and also unchecked. And I'm just going to give you some examples. I'm going to give you some examples about, my brother, some incidences in my hometown of Goldsboro, North Carolina. But I'm also going to give you some national instances as well. But back to TD Jakes, there is some videos that kind of make him look suspect. I don't know if you probably have seen it within the past week, where he has a video with a male in a almost sheriff's office uniform or police officer uniform, and he's dancing very flamboyantly in front of TD Jakes. And one person pointed out that TD Jakes is standing behind him in a almost lustful manner with his hand in his pants. And this person alleged that, that Jakes might have been pleasuring himself. Now, you can go watch the video. I don't have the video in the links, but you can go search that video out just by me commentating on it. That, that kind of leads to the suspicions that people are alleging that, Mr. Jakes has been, involved in these things. Now, also, reading a couple of, comments on a couple of different, other videos, people from Dallas said, okay, well, this is no secret to the people in Dallas. People in Dallas already knew this or whatever. Once again, those things haven't been confirmed, but we must must acknowledge, that once again, no man is above reproach, and sometimes where there's smoke, there is fire. Now, T.D. Jakes, once again, he hasn't addressed this, and a lot of people, sometimes discount people as well by their motives or the timing of their allegations, which some people feel that the person is angry. The person is wanting money who is, coming out with these things. But that still doesn't discount that these things may be true, regardless of the person's intentions of doing so. So nevertheless, I just want to give you a couple of examples from the national level, but also from some personal levels. And I'm going to ask the question, why is it that, we are so quick to forgive or overlook or, not condemn these men who supposedly walk and talk for God, but they live a different lifestyle. There was a man, and I'm pretty sure everybody remembers, a few years back, maybe 5 or 6 years ago, maybe even less. It was Bishop Eddie Long. Bishop Eddie Long. There was about 5 young men who came out and detailed how he sort of groomed them from a young age, some as early as 16 or 15, and became a father figure to them. And actually, one of them said that he stated and called him dad. But then he began to engage in sexual activity, sexual advances with these young men for a period of years. And some of them were already on the, had gender confusion or sexual confusion in their lives. And, others probably went along with it because of the prominence or the kind of status that they got just by being in his presence. They talked about how, wherever they would go in the city, people would almost bow down to his feet, and they would get, the choicest spots, and they would get, things handed to their feet just by being, with Bishop Eddie Long. So all of those things sort of enamored the young men to, I guess, participate in these things in which they otherwise wouldn't have. So in one article I was reading, like even now, one of those gentlemen who claimed, or not claimed, I guess, but or came out with it now is happily married, and he's an advocate for children being sexually abused by so-called mentors and father figures. So that is one incident that still sticks out to me, and I remember when it first came out. I remember when Bishop Eddie Long came to the podium and said, I have not yet begun to fight, sort of like he was, well, I forgot that civil rights guy, or the Civil War guy who said that, but he said, yeah, David had 5 stones and I haven't threw not one rock yet. And, he was very adamant about defending himself, and, his congregation were clapping and praising and hoorah, and next thing he's settling out of court, some weeks or some months later. So there was no fight. There was no denouncing of the allegations, denying of the allegations. There was just a quick settlement in which he paid those young men substantial amount of money to be quiet. And of course, he was never charged. If I'm not mistaken, he was never dethroned from his pastoralship, if that's a word. As Ricky Smiley would say, he was never dethroned. And, a lot of his members kept going on and on and on and on to the church. So that is an example of how, I guess, fickle we are when it comes to people who are just so loved and revered that, no matter what they do, no matter how much they should be sat down, those things don't occur because of um, their past good deeds. And we can go way back in time, and not just with the homosexuality or the same sex sins, but we can talk about the extramarital sins, or the homosexual fornication, or the adulteral sins of a lot of pastors in the past. I don't know if you remember Jimmy Swaggart, or Jim Baker, or even recently I saw something where Fred Price Jr. Came out and apologized to his family and his wife and his church for something he had done. And he didn't go into detail, but I could just assume that it was something extramarital and that nature. And there's a long list of preachers, or men of God, as they say, that fall victim to the prevalency of the availability of women who are willing to sleep with them, no matter what their position is. So, but there's something about the homosexual nature. Like, just an example, like when I was a kid at a church called Tabernacle of Prayer, when someone, it happened on a few occasions, but when someone or some couple or some singles in the church would be have found out to be having extramarital sex, or adulterous sex, those two people will be sat on the back row. Whether they sung in the choir, whether they preached. If a underage child got pregnant, they will be sat on the back row to allow the church to know that, look, this person has considered a sin. They must be punished. They're not allowed to operate as they have been operating, because we don't want the rest of the people to think it's okay that you can just sin and do what you want and just still sing in the choir and play the drums and all of those things. So in that regard, that taught us that whatever you do is going to be found out, and people are going to know, and you're not going to be able to continue in the way that you have continued. Now, in my recollection, I never heard of any same-sex incidents, but I do remember seeing men and women on the back row, and then it came out later that they were somewhere fooling around. So I commend my church for that, for allowing there to be some sort of standard to be set forth, to let people know, well, hey, yeah, everybody does fall victim at some times, but there has to be a punishment, there has to be a consequence for these actions. Otherwise, we would think that these things need to go on and on and on and on. And so I just want to bring that in there, just to bring up, these other topics, and then I'm gonna let y'all go, because there are a lot of famous preachers who have been said to have extramarital affairs. We can go back to Elijah Muhammad. They said Elijah Muhammad, used to mess with young girls and, had secretaries, but once again, none of his followers, you can tell that to none of his, diehard followers. You can go back to, even they said Martin Luther King, had a nice harem of women, whom he, had extramarital affairs with. Once again, I don't know, but, that has been said. Jesse Jackson, we know, well, we don't know, but, pretty sure you heard of his exploits with women. C.L. Franklin, the father of Aretha Franklin, has been noted and was noted to, do all types of orgies, and some even suspect that he may have been a father, or even one of his parishioners may have been a father of Aretha Franklin's 13-year-old pregnancy. We also have the Reverend James Cleveland, the Reverend James Cleveland, and all these people have passed on, so bless their souls. The Reverend James Cleveland was rumored to be involved in, same-sex activities, boys at his home and men at his home and things of that nature. So this is not nothing new, but we once again must ask ourselves, why is this a thing? Where, men who are supposed to be living by the tenets of the gospel and tenets that are laid forth in the word of God often, fall victim through this lifestyle. What is it in the church? And oftentimes this lifestyle oftentimes gets swept under the rug. It's not talked about. It's not brought up in certain circles. So there's almost a protection of these things. Like, it's almost a running joke in the black community. Yeah, like the choir director, he's going to be fruity, or the piano player, he's going to be fruity, for lack of a better word. And so once again, let me put that we always got to put this disclaimer out there. I don't have anything against anybody who indulges in same-sex behavior. We're talking about this in regards to the church and what the church is supposed to stand for. Barring all of the love the sinner but not the sin logic and things of that nature. Of course, we know all those things, but there is one particular story that once again just calls me into question about the black community and the church and this type of behavior, and almost how it's almost sometimes accepted now. In Goldsboro, a place where I am from. I'm not there now, as you see, but in the Goldsboro. There was, a few years back, there was, in my opinion, a scandal that should have rocked the church sector, and maybe it did, because at this time, once again, I was staying out of town, so I didn't really see the repercussions, but I saw it from a distance, and it began with a Facebook post, by, I think she's a cousin of mine, but we're not close cousins, but she said, well, yeah, and these pastors' husbands and these men that's supposed to be proclaiming the gospel, they getting caught in the bed together and such, and they leaving their wives for each other and stuff. And I said, whoa, because the way she said it, I had to, and I had to, because this was shocking to me. Because once again, if you know me, I grew up in the church, and I'm very, involved in certain circles in the church world. So this was shocking to me even at that time, where, I wasn't, living a life that proclaimed Christ. So once again, I'm not judging anybody. I'm just speaking from, someone looking on the outside in. But nevertheless, I actually called this cousin of mine, and she said, yeah, this pastor, her husband, and he got caught in the bed with, another prominent businessman in the area. And so I was like, what? No, you kidding me? She said, yeah, everybody know about that. If they don't know, they gonna know today, because she was sort of one who exposed that type of behavior. So I looked, and I went to each individual men and their wives' pages, right? And so as I began to look at those pages, where before you would see, the pastor and her husband and all of these pics with their family and things like that, all of that was almost erased. And you saw, the pastor, just the pastor who was a female. The pastor was a female, and, you didn't see her husband in those pictures any longer. And then I would go to the other page, the prominent businessman and his wife. And I went to, his wife page, and I would see her with the children and, all of the, the birthdays and things like that. But then I wouldn't see the man in that picture, and I would go to his page and I would see him with the children, but not, with the wife. So it was obvious and clear to me that, those two couples were not together any longer. And as time went on, of course, it was prevalent that they had got a divorce, and that each relationship had split up, right? And so, but then what was baffling to me is those men continued to, and I think one of them was a minister, and one of them was a once again a prominent businessman in the community who professed God, and those men continued to operate in their capacities. Like, they would be praying here, and they would be at church services here and proclaiming the gospel and amen, and having prayer, and conducting things that men of God conducted. And so it just baffled me that was there not a checking, like I mentioned in the church I grew up in? Was there not a sitting down? Was there not a punishment? Was there not a reconciliation because of their actions? And if it was, then how swift was it? Because from someone on the outside looking in, and mind you, I was on the outside looking in, it didn't seem like nothing happened. And mind you, I didn't catch them in the bed together, but if you follow the steps of when the person said, well, yeah, they got caught in the bed, now both of these guys are divorced, and both of these guys are both of their wives are not having anything to do with them, then like I always say, 1 + 1 = 2. You do the dishes, simple math. So when I begin to look at things like that, I begin to think, well, what is it with this community of ours that just I guess accept that as a normal behavior now, and that could be because of the different agendas that are being pushed on society today. But I don't know, what I'm saying, I don't know. And I've followed a few other I would say exposers in the community that that would oftentimes talk about these leaders and these elders and their these pastors and their ungodly behavior, which once again I have no proof, so I won't mention no names. But there are several names that I even heard outside of these individuals said, well, yeah, you haven't heard about Pastor so and so? Yeah, he like it, as they said, boy, that good food. But as they said with Pastor Jake say he like it as a power bottom, and whatever that means, y'all can look that up yourself. But I've heard several people come out about these, some area pastors in Goldsboro, and naming them by names, which I would never do unless I caught them red-handed, like y'all want to hear it, or I have some substantial proof. But there have been several allegations of pastors that have went that way, and so I'm going to share this information about another young man. Now, this another young man, and the only reason I'm using his name is because he used his testimony on Facebook, and his name is Elder Antonio Super. Now, he was my Facebook friends. We have a lot of mutual Facebook friends. I believe the young brother reached out to me, a while back, and I'm not sure what it was. I have to check my inbox, because he had about 4 different Facebook pages. And oftentimes, with me, when I see a person doing that, I see it as almost a identity crisis or a sign of instability. I know that, a lot of times when I was going through my addiction, I would make a post, and then, the next day I would remove my Facebook page, and then, 2 days later I would get back up there and make a post, and then 3 days later I would be, I would removing my page and stuff like that. So I know how unstable I was in that time, and I don't know, this brother's, but Mr. Antonio Super actually took his own life, allegedly, on March the 23rd of this year, almost 9 months ago. Now, his Facebook profile was stated Elder Antonio Super. Now, um, 5 days, and someone actually, sent this to me. 5 days before his demise, he made sort of a cryptic post, almost, letting people into his torment, his situation, whereas, he had been battling some things. So, I'm gonna read this to you so we can just get a gist of what he's saying. And it is my understanding that, he had a lot of knowledge of, these pastors in the local, Goldsboro, Eastern North Carolina area, participating in some of those things. And here is why. He said, I don't put my business out there at all. Others do it for me. But I do want to start by saying depression is real. I have been dealing with it for close to a year now. Things haven't been lining up nor adding up. Now he's talking about, I guess, his personal life and how, he is depressed. Said when it comes to black men, I feel like depression hits harder because of how the world is set up now. Going to work feeling depressed. Most black homes don't have the father in the home. It's mainly single mothers. 89% of the black homes are single mother homes. Now, shout out to the single mother homes, as well as all the dads that still participate in those children's life. So, the mother always excuses that she is doing what's best for the kids. So, taking a black man with 3 girls and a 5-year-old boy should be taken out of the equation just because the female most time will not submit. Where's the accountability? Where are the answers? So here I think he is talking about his relationship with his wife may have been estranged because he said, taking a black man with 3 girls and a 5-year-old boy out of the equation just because the woman will not submit. Now that means maybe they have been, having some issues with agreements, because most people don't know when the Bible means, when a woman's supposed to submit to a man, she's supposed to agree, not, submit and fall under him and things like that. But a whole nother conversation. But nevertheless, he says, where are the answers? He said, I can speak on the man that does try. I can't speak on the man that does not try, but the man that do try to be in the household and try to be the father and or husband. So basically he's saying, look, he's been trying. And he's definitely talking about his relationship here. He says, I'm 33 years old, been together with one woman for 10 years and been married for a year and have 3 kids together and 1 outside of the relationship. So a total of 4 kids together. I know for a fact that I haven't been the best father nor husband. I have allowed my past to control my future, doing what feels good to me. And we're going to stop right there real quick before we get into the bread and butter of this. He's admitting that he has not been the best father or husband, and he says he allows his past to control him, doing what feels good to me. And this last paragraph, this is where I'm going to end, because he goes on to talk about abuse and things like that he did to his wife. He said, I have lied to my wife. I have said some things that I wouldn't say to my mother, let alone my wife. I have cheated more times than once with both sexes, fighting devils in my childhood. Yeah, I did it. I'm not proud of it, but it is what it is. And so there you have this young man, Mr. Antonio Super, 5 days before his death, confirming or confessing that he has cheated with his wife several times with both sexes. That means men and women, ladies and gentlemen. He said, I did it. I'm not proud of it, but it is what it is. But he also mentioned one thing that is very telling as well. He says, I'm fighting devils in my childhood. And so, what are those devils that he is fighting? Because, as I mentioned, a lot of these preachers, predators, as we call them, prey on young men and women, especially in the church. So, am I to infer from this that, the elder was maybe touched or inappropriately assaulted in his childhood? Because as we know from, I think, R. Kelly and, a few other people who mentioned abuse, that, when you're abused as a child, you begin to abuse others. And once again, he mentioned, doing what feels good to me. If you are abused in that manner as a child, as I read earlier in a book about demonic possession, those demons enter you, and that possession enter you, and you begin to want to fulfill those desires unknowingly or knowingly, because even though you were violated, it somehow felt good in a sick, sordid way, and you want to continue to have that feeling, whether it's, between willing participants or unwilling participant, men or women, whatever the case may be. It opens the child up to, some very adult problems, which lead into problems in adulthood. But here we see, once again, Elder Antonio Super, and this is 5 days before his death, going on, to basically take his life after admitting that he has had sex, with men. And he said, "I'm glad that the pastor in my life pulled me away from the pulpit to get my household together, and it has been rough. It was rough preaching and getting off the pulpit and have so much hell to deal with at home or in the church. My marriage is on the verge of divorce, and my kids feel like I don't really want to be bothered with them." Um, you know, he confirms that, his wife has been, coming and going, and, her baby daddy's in the picture. Our relationship has changed a lot. He wanted to, you know, say that, he wants his family back before he loses his mind. Mind you, I didn't read the whole post, but that's only 5 months before his death. Now, mind you as well, just like I mentioned, this man evidently was very known. I see a lot of friends, mutual friends. I think on one of his pages, I have 711 mutual friends with him. Now, mind you, I wasn't personal close friends with him, but evidently he was very well known in the community. However, his death, once again, went unmemorialized in my terms. I feel like I didn't know he had committed suicide when the young lady sent me a couple of posts, with people lamenting his death, and I'm like, yeah, I know, yeah, I think, yeah, I see him on my page. What, he committed suicide? I didn't know. And mind you, this was probably, this was early in this year, but there was not much talk about his death. There was not much, many people mentioning his death, and then I had to ask myself once again why, because did this man hold a lot of the secrets of the pastors that have been engaged in that activity, and were there many people who probably was glad he was dead, because he may have been willing to spill the beans, as they say, with certain pastors. So I don't know, but rest in peace to this young man, and his children, and his loved ones. But there is something that he was dealing with that may have been a cause of someone possibly taking advantage of him as a child. I'm back, once again back to T.D. Jakes. There's allegations that they had some young boys and they were making the young boys do some things that the young boys didn't want to do. And so if that is the case, I think that is very, very, very wrong and very traumatic, for those young men, because as we see that those things, those childhood traumas follow you throughout life. But I did just want to speak on this situation because there is a lot of sweeping under the rug in the church circles, in the church houses, where we see these men who, are a little flamboyant, a little sassy, a little sissified, as we call them. And, we just letting them pass, through the cracks. And, then wonder why, a lot of our men or our young boys, may fall victim to some sort of, assault, or, they may, begin to, lean towards, the other side in some regards, if that makes sense. But nevertheless, I'm going to keep my eyes open. Once again, nothing has been proven in the way of T.D. Jakes, but there are so many men who profess godliness will fall to sexual sin and immorality, and in their lives. But there's one thing when we talk about sexual acts between men and women, which is also a sin if you are not married. But then the Bible calls sexual acts between men and men an abomination. So I think there's some sort of a difference there. There's some sort of as some people say, there's levels to this. So there may be a different level when we talk about those things. But who am I? As people say, I don't have any hell or hell or jail to put anybody in. But I think that is is definitely something that we should address if those things are happening. We just don't supposed to sweep those things under the rugs, where men are doing things, working at things which the Bible calls unseemly with other men. We should have the same energy, when a man is, caught cheating on his wife, with another woman. It should be just as talked about, or even more talked about, than a man cheating on his wife with another man. But that's just my opinion. I'm going to let you guys go, but I hope y'all had a very good holidays. Y'all, they ain't letting my man T.D. Jakes rest on the internet, because there's, once again, there's so many allegations. There's so many people talk about it. I just had to chime in with some of my own experience of stories that, are not really talked about, but, they are happening. So peace and blessings. Y'all have a good night. I'm out.